Hi and welcome to this episode of the Property Pod. I'm joined today by Ola. Ola is a work experience member of Attwells. She has done 2 weeks work experience and is going to help do a bit more work with the marketing team for her degree. She currently studies at Suffolk University, which is a local university to us, obviously based in Ipswich, and she's studying law. So we just wanted in this podcast to discuss how you get into the legal industry, how you can become a solicitor, and just break down the barriers to that. I think when people think about law firms, they think about solicitors, they tend to see, an older white man maybe in a suit, quite stuffy, quite grand. We're breaking down those barriers and changing those concepts at Attwells. As you can probably tell, I'm a little bit on the punky side. I tend to have bright hair, tends to be quite short. I'm not a traditional legal person. Okay, I work in the marketing department, so maybe there's a bit of a aspect that you would associate with that. But traditionally, the people who work in our firm are quite laid back. They're very different. It's not as you would expect. We don't live up to the stereotypes. We're proud to be different. So we want to try and convey that in the work we do, and try and get that message out to the general community that actually, you can have a career in law. It doesn't matter about your background. I've not come from a particularly prestigious background. For those of you who are local, I went to Holywells in the 1990s. It's changed now, but at the time it was pretty rough. And there's a couple of us that have had similar backgrounds, who have not particularly come from money or wealth, and we've come from estates, and we've worked our way up. Those type of things no longer matter. I myself, I'm studying a master's degree, but when I left school, I left with no GCSEs, and I've been able to do that myself outside of school. So we're just going to have a broad conversation about that and about how you can get into law. So I just want people to be very open-minded by the fact if you're thinking this is not for me, I can't possibly do this, actually you probably could. So we're going to work on that basis of being very open-minded. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to welcome Ola, and we're going to ask a few questions. That was a very long introduction. So my first question is, always to my guests is to find out a little bit about them. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little about yourself.
Yes, so my name is Ola. I study at the University of Suffolk. I'm going into my second year. In my first year, I was the youngest student because I started at 17, which was pretty scary. However, I got on fine, which is always great. Outside of university, I work part-time and I enjoy doing some yoga as well. And I run a blog outside of university for my Instagram where I talk about studying law, overall university life, and I try to promote mental health awareness as well a lot. So yeah.
I think that's really good. The mental health aspect during COVID has definitely been great. Definitely felt it myself in terms of life became going to and from work, and that was it. And the restrictions you had.
Yeah,
some
definitely.
People haven't even left their house. I mean, there was a time when we were just working from home. It has become strained, and also I think to discuss college and university life is quite good. People think it's like parties and you turn up for the odd class like you see in the films, and you sort of sit in this big auditorium and you're just listening. It's not like that.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
You end up getting piles of books and taking notes, and post-it notes become your friend.
Definitely.
That's what I found. Yeah. Good stationery. I do like stationery.
Me too.
So my second question is, what course are you studying and what does it involve?
So I study law at the University of Suffolk. It's the qualifying degree to becoming a solicitor, even though now it's changing a bit and you don't have to have a law degree to qualify. But I'm just in the basic law degree LLB to qualify.
Okay, yeah. So what Ola touched upon there is there's been some changes to how you can now become a solicitor or a lawyer. I'm going to put some information about that in the bottom of the video because it's quite an interesting part. It's relatively new, but it does mean that there are different routes, and you don't necessarily have to have a degree. There's someone who worked within who was actually now a partner who worked within our law firm, and he started off at a very early trainee level and they work their way up. So you can actually do this in a non-educational route, and you can also go to degree route, which is what you're doing, which both are equally good routes. So it depends on your own personal preference. I'm with you. I probably would have taken the degree route, just because I feel like there's some importance in having a degree, and for me having credits.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, credits are what you obtain when you do GCSEs, I believe, but A-levels, degrees, masters, and then it goes on when you do a PhD. If you have credits, you can then go on and use those credits to take on other courses. So it's always very important to have credits, because it gives you options, even if you've completed, say you're doing A-levels and you feel like this is not for me. My advice would be to stick it out to complete the course, because those credits then mean you can go on and do a degree that may be slightly different or completely different. I think in most cases, I'm trying to think what I got mine in now. I think it was leisure and tourism. I ended up doing a graphic design degree, which was nothing like what I'd studied in college, but because I had the credits, I could go off and do that. So that would be my advice for A-level students, is to sort of stick it out, even if it's not quite right for you, just so you can get do the degree. Likewise, you can vary from the degree to your masters if you're going down that route. When it comes to masters to PhD, as I'm discovering, you have to have a very relatable course. So for example, I'm studying marketing, and I could do interventive marketing, or I could do strategic marketing, but I couldn't do science, for example. Just put an example out there. It has to be relatable, and you get to that level. God, we went really off track then. So going back to the COVID, how did that impact your studying? How have you found that?
Oh, it really hit me hard. It really did. I was so used to always going to school, attending college. And then when suddenly towards the end of my college, before I even started uni, we ended up online, and it was such a mess at the time. The lessons were all over the place. Our work had to change. So for example, I was meant to take exams and they got cancelled, and instead we had to write a massive piece that was quite similar to, obviously not a dissertation, but of a similar nature, like a massive essay piece towards the end of the college degree, oh my god, towards college. And it was just a mess. And then for university, when I started, we had blended learning, so it was basically half online and half there in person, which I enjoyed. And then lockdown came and everything was online, and getting a degree through essentially FaceTime and group chats and emails is very difficult. Obtaining that, it's very stressful. But I'm happy to say I managed it. You just have to, it took me time to get used to it for sure, and see what works for me and what doesn't, but I managed to get there. But it was definitely not easy at all. Definitely not. And it still probably won't if we ever have future lockdowns, which fingers crossed we don't. But if that ever comes down to it, once again having to jump from learning in person to online, now that we've done it, probably is a bit easier because we know where we stand, but it's still going to be difficult. So I just hope we remain in person where possible.
I think definitely can relate to that. My degree is with Arden. It's a long distance course, so I have a portal that I enter into, and so I'm doing my masters all online. It is challenging. I found the support to be the most hard. Like there'd be conversations that I would have had with my tutor that would have been quite natural and organic, whereas they're not so much because of the distance, so you tend to ask less questions. That's what I've found. I guess the benefit for me for long distance was that I was able to remain at work. I was able to stay local. I was able to do all those things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I was attending university, because obviously the classes tend to be during the day and I work during the day. So I was able to obtain, she says, on my final bit, hopefully obtain my marketing degree in the evenings and weekends. So for someone who's watching this podcast, who's maybe a bit older like myself and is trying to get back into education, long distance learning is something that I would definitely recommend. you have to be very committed and you have to be quite focused, to what you're doing, which is, I can imagine, is different from
it makes it easier if you enjoy it though, for sure.
Definitely.
If you're stuck doing a degree that you either got pushed into or pushed yourself into, not knowing if you enjoy it, then that's going to make it a bit more difficult to motivate yourself.
You do have to enjoy it. So
definitely.
If you are an older student and you are wanting to do this, long distance learning, if you have to work, is ideal. It will fit around, but you will not have a social life. I've not had a social life for 2 years at least. It's one of those trade-offs. I'm now looking to do my PhD, and I'm thinking that's going to be another 2 or 3 years. I personally am not interested in having a social life at the moment anyway, so it doesn't bother me. But it is certainly something that you need to consider, and also, like you said, you have to really like the subject.
Yeah, definitely. It makes it much more easier.
One of the things that gets overlooked, and this goes back to your social media when you put out about your studying, is the amount of reading involved.
Definitely. The amount of reading, especially on a law degree, it's overwhelming. And we get such a big list, like every other university doing law. They get long lists. It's the same across the board. But it's just not possible to read everything. You try your best, but towards the end of the year, especially in first year, you figure out what you actually need and what is just the extra reading. And prioritization definitely is key when it comes to reading all the books that you have to read.
Definitely. And post-it noting and section of chapters too.
Yeah, that's really important.
There is a lot to it.
Definitely.
It's not a case of just turning up. Trying to encourage people here, like I'm doing the opposite. Sorry. So going back to work experience, we touched upon this again in the intro, my long intro, kind of waffled in that one. You done work experience with Charlotte in the conveyancing team. How did you find working with Charlotte and the team, and just generally work experience at Attwells?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that it was serious, of course it was serious, but it wasn't too it was really friendly. That's the word I'm looking for. It was really friendly to get into, and it eased my stress straight away. When I was doing the work experience with Charlotte was really, really lovely, and she explained all the tasks well, and I liked the fact that she gave me a task, for example, talked a bit about it, then sent me off to do it, and then we'd call back on FaceTime about it, and she'd run me through everything and run me through what I'd done well, what I could improve on, and I think that was really helpful, that she wouldn't give me all the points, that I had to then go and look at the whole work thing myself, and it gave me a bit more independence, but at the same time a lot of help. So that was really good. I really enjoyed that.
Oh, that's really good feedback. Actually, it's nice to know. So we offer online work experience, in it's sort of like a hybrid in terms of Charlotte, who is a senior solicitor within the firm. She gives great advice and great support, but equally, as you were saying, it's independent learning too, and it is remote at the moment, but you do have that hybrid approach of the FaceTime calls, the phone calls, all those type of things. Obviously COVID has made us change our sort of approach to work experience, but we're still committed to helping young people get into law, which is good.
And also the tasks vary, so they're not literally all the same, like drafting. There's a few drafting tasks, there's a few email tasks, and then some tasks where you have to go through and look through things and fill in forms, so they're all different tasks, so it's not literally you're doing the same thing for days and days, which is good. So
that's cool. So you bit of a variety, I think, in terms of like coming in and helping with what we do. The marketing department is very varied. So this morning before I came here, I was web designing, and now I'm doing a podcast, and when I go back I'll be doing something different, probably blog writing, or I'll be doing some kind of advert or something like that. So my day quite varies. I also get involved with strategic marketing of the company, so just because of my role, I tend to be involved in the actual management side of things as well. So it is very varied, and I think people fully understands that aspect either.
Yeah.
When you go into law, there's many different avenues you can go down. We have a few different departments, so it's not just churning out conveyancing as such, which is again another misconception. There's a lot to it, and you could go into the private client department, for example, or we've got commercial employment. So there's lots of different avenues you can go down, and I suppose the bigger the organisation, the more variation there is as well.
Yeah, and also the tasks I'd done, even like I said, they were different tasks.
Yeah.
They were also with different departments, so it wasn't just conveyancing. It was contract conveyancing, will drafting, and different stuff.
That I think is really important. I love that aspect to what we do. It's such varied. A nice pattern. Yeah. It's great. What would you say to students? I'm losing my voice. Shouldn't cough during COVID. You notice that during COVID you're like, I can't cough. What would you say to students considering undertaking work experience?
Do it. Go for it, because it's such a useful thing. I underestimated work experience in my first few weeks at university, for sure. And in the long run, it's going to be really helpful for applications. Especially the work experience with Attwells was really helpful, like I said, within different departments and learning different things.
And I think as well, on your CV, having undertaken work experience, it shows that you are keen to learn.
Exactly.
It shows that you haven't just done your degree, you've actually gone that bit extra, which employees will look for.
Yeah, definitely.
Training contractors do, they'll look at these things as positive. So yeah,
and you can learn so much from work experience. The skills you gain, you can showcase it in your future interviews with law firms and whatnot, so it's definitely really helpful.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And just being in that environment and absorbing it all. And I guess this goes back again to what we were talking about stereotypes, but what stereotype did you have of a solicitor, and has that changed since your work experience?
Definitely.
Have we shattered that illusion?
Well, I didn't have a very off kind of point of view of what a solicitor did, but I did have a stereotype that all they do is sit in front of a computer, which to some degree is correct, but it's not at the same time. There's different phone calls, there's meetings you have to go to. Some solicitors go to court still, so there's a whole different aspect to it, not just sitting in front of a computer. So definitely that changed. When I was with Charlotte, she was talking me through as well what she was doing on the side with work, and there was loads of phone calls involved in that. So it's not just sitting in front of a computer writing emails.
when I was younger, I just imagined an older chap and dark wood sort of littering his office, and he'd be there with some sort of fountain pen writing on
that's another one.
Very expensive paper.
That is another one for sure.
Definitely my stereotype.
And the book cases.
Oh, the bookcase.
Loads and loads of books. But that to some degree is true though, the amount of books.
Yeah, there is a lot of books involved. We do a lot of it now is online though.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
The Law Society have a great online library.
Yeah, loads of resources online now, which is good.
Yeah, LexisNexis has a great
Westlaw as well. Yeah, and there's loads.
There's loads. So the books are minimising. Soon there'll be no need for that library case. So
soon.
That'd be good. So sorry, I'm really off track. I'm trying to read the questions out, as you can probably see in my paper here. What do you think could be done to achieve more equality in the legal sector?
What do you mean specifically by equality?
That's a tough one.
There's different,
so different people. So one of my kind of passions is about inviting more people into the law firm and awakening this pathway. As a sector, traditionally the law sector has a bit of a reputation where, as I said, it's going to sound terrible, but I don't mean it's terrible, it's probably going to come out as, but it tended to be an old male white club. About meaning to bring race into a conversation, but it's sort of a bit hard not to have this conversation without bringing it in, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely. It's important to bring up. Though.
Yeah, and that's how it, because it's a very old institute, and that's how it's been for a while. There was a book that I read that was actually published in 2002, and it's part of my studying, which was an old law book, and it referred to partners as him, his. It was like male
constantly male.
And that was like, hang on a second. And I actually looked to see when the book was published. I was thinking 1970s, 1980s, and it wasn't. It was in the 2000s. I was really shocked.
Wow.
So for me, the fact that Attwells have a 50-50 partner split between
That's
men
really
and women
good.
is fantastic. The fact that we have all sorts of races working for us is fantastic. Because I think we literally are a micro... Was it micro... I can't even say the word, but we basically mirror our community, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
And so I suppose when I'm talking about equality, I'm addressing those issues and sort of saying how, from a young perspective, how do you think that the law sector can improve on that? I think Attwells are probably a bit ahead of the curve in terms of generally, but
I think one of the things I'm going to mention firsthand is grades, and that comes and mixes within like backgrounds, people coming from different backgrounds. Some people for loads of reasons might not be able to achieve those grades at school, at high school, at college or A levels, but that doesn't mean that they're not smart people.
Yeah.
And that goes to both genders, obviously male and female. And something I've seen on loads of law firms' website is focusing on grades a lot, which I don't find fair, because I know I only have 2 GCSEs, for example, and I was studying a law degree, and across the board I don't hear about law students having only 2 GCSEs. They have more than that, like 5, 6 A stars and whatnot, and I don't have that. I barely scraped a pass on English and maths, to be honest, and I know I am still going for it with my law degree. So not focusing on grades, no matter kind of what background you're from and what schools you went to, etc. So kind of in applications, for example, letting everyone have an interview, no matter if they failed their GCSEs, for example. I think that's the way it could be achieved more.
I think that's a good point, because I think you can be academically strong, but you can also be practically strong.
Exactly.
And those are 2 very different things. I would probably say that I lean towards the more practical side, and academic, despite the fact I'm doing a master's, has been forced. It's not something that I naturally find easy. I have to really, really try. I probably put more hours in than I need to, but I have to for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I completely get that. And I left high school with like E's and F's, and I think my only B I got was in religious education, which is odd. Mind you, I'm a Buddhist, so maybe it's not so odd. So yeah, I do get that, actually. I think it's a really good idea of just not focusing and actually taking the person and looking at what other skills they have. I think that's one of the great things again about Attwells, is that we do offer entry level junior paralegal roles.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's, you start off doing little bits of admin and you can build your way up. As I said, this is the journey of one of our partners. So they've gone from that position right the way to the top, and you can do that. There's no harm in doing it that way, and I think that does open the door for a lot of people that who would struggle, because
that's the key.
Yeah, you can't help your family background or where you happen to be born, and you can't get away from the fact that if you were in certain different scenarios, your options would be different. I mean, for example, and it sounds like I'm slurring my whole high school. I'm not, because it's completely different now. You got to think, I was at high school and doing my education in the 1980s and 1990s, so we're going back a fair bit now. But no one ever spoke to me in career progressions about law or about degrees. It was just assumed that I'd go to college and do what I had to do for that year, because you had to, and it was only like a year you had to stay until you were 17.
Yeah.
That I would do that. It would be a kind of course where you just would attend, but you really wouldn't be focused. Or I'd end up going to sort of work and get signed off that I was okay to go to work, so I just didn't have the grades. And that was it. It was like, well, I've just pick any course, and what do you want to do in your future life? And it was like, do you want to do these? And the things that came up were always like factory working and cleaning and care assistant and all this type of working in a shop, and not that there's anything wrong with those things, there's not at all. My son is a cleaner, just so you know.
Too. Me too.
Yeah, so there's nothing wrong with those things. And I've done all sorts of roles in my life just to pay bills and things. There's nothing wrong with that. but it was never because of the school I was in, because of the grades that I was getting. There was no aspiration to, well, do you want to try and retake your GCSEs? Do you want to then look at maybe this and this? It was all very much like, no, that's not for you. No one in my family had ever just done a degree. Come from a very working class family, from an estate. We didn't do those things. It wasn't in our family. So I definitely understand what you're saying there, because these things are not discussed. And if you're not used to it, if you come from a family background, especially I can imagine if your family maybe are on receiving benefits, or maybe, and that's your background, and that's a generational thing for you to sort of say, I want to study to a degree, would be like quite aspirational and almost get mocked. So I can imagine that would be a fear part. And also as well, if you don't know about these things and no one in your family has done it before and you're the first, as in my case, well, how are you going to pay for this? And that's another thing, understanding what you can get in student loans. If your family are financially struggling, you do receive benefits, tax credits, for example, or universal credits. You can get help. You can get more help with your student grants, and they are grants, so you don't have to pay them back. Your student loan is something different. You do have to pay that back, but it comes out after you're earning so much money. Is it over 20,000?
I think 25? So. Yeah, I think
25,000. If you look on the website, if you just type in student loans, it'll come up information. And so you don't start paying it back, and you pay it off in really small amounts from your pay packet. You don't have to pay it all back at once. It's sort of like £20 or something a month, and it goes up as your wages go up. So understanding and learning these things, it's very important. Doing your research. So again, if you are, just to reiterate, if you are in a low income family, please do look at the grants and support you can get. Speak to your university when you're applying, and tell them, be very honest. There's no embarrassment, there's no shame in it. You won't be talking to them about anything they haven't heard before. Have that conversation, just say, this is my situation. So, but again, I guess you've got to get the GCSEs and A-levels to try and do that. So yeah, it's very challenging. We really went off topic then, and covered that quite widely. So the other question I have here is, what area of law are you hoping to get into?
So at the moment, I haven't fully decided what area, but I am looking more at the commercial or insurance, shipping kind of law. But I haven't fully decided. At first I was like criminal law for sure, but in the long run I don't think it's going to be too good for my mental health. In the long run, I've had to sit through all the heartbreaking cases, etc. So I think I'm going to be sticking to commercial law side for now. So but I don't have a set one just yet. Hopefully soon.
You've got plenty of time, that's fine. Also, when we have like trainees come in, they go around and they sit in different seats, and you'll be surprised. We've had so many people that have come in and said, I want to do this, and then they do it and it's like, that's not what I was expecting. I actually really like this, and it's like really surprising. It's really odd, and they can be very varied in terms of someone thinking, I want to do commercial, but end up really enjoying private client, which is completely different. But so you never know. So there's plenty of time for that. Yeah, plenty of time. What career aspirations do you have? So where do you see yourself maybe in 5 or 10 years?
Ooh, I want to be a solicitor by then, hopefully qualified, and just doing what I enjoy, basically, whatever area I choose to properly be in. But I want to be a qualified solicitor by then, and then in 10 years maybe work my way up the ladder a bit. And I definitely, in the next 5 years, I also want to do a master's, something to do with law, but more a specific niche area rather than just a law master's. So that's where I see myself.
That would be good. Yeah, definitely do it. Yeah, there's a lot of worth, I think, in doing master degrees. It really hones your skills.
Definitely.
I
makes you specialise in something specific.
How would you? Well, you've kind of said this, but the last question was, how would you rate your work experience at Attwells? I guess if you were going to give it out of 5 stars, like they do in FIFO.
Ooh.
there's a tricky.
I'd say 4 or 4.5, but The only reason a star is missing is I think it'd be better if it would be in person, which hopefully in the next few years it will be. Then the experience would have been even better. But apart from that, I didn't. All good, really.
Okay.
Taught me a lot, so
we'll take 4.5. That's absolutely fine. Be it that you did do your experience during COVID, so it's definitely strained somewhat. Hopefully when you come back in to do your day a week, it'll be better, because I'm doing it. Not that there's any competition, Charlotte, but you'll probably really like taking me back to Charlotte. It's nuts. Okay, that's all from us today. So I hope you've really enjoyed our chat. We have gone off subject, and I hope we haven't sort of offended anyone. We try not to, but we kind of speak quite openly here. It's a bit more of a table talk conversation than it is anything sort of too professional. We're not sort of trying to watch our P's and Q's, but so hopefully you found it useful and you haven't been offended. Hopefully not. It's quite light-hearted. Again, I work in the marketing department. I'm not legally trained, so please don't take everything I say as being absolute. I will put some links below for any of the subjects we talked about, particularly in relation to student support and financial help, and links to our training program and our work experience program too, which will be quite useful. Please do click the like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you're finding this interesting and you want to find out more about Attwells. That'd be fantastic. The more likes and subscribes we get, the more YouTube will share our videos, and it will get this information out to more people, and that's what we're ultimately trying to do. So thank you for watching this week's Property Pod, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.